Good. That's a good angle. All
That
right,
good?
death. Sorry, no. Oh, we have to probably do like an intro thing.
Yeah, you're my first guest.
Yay! You're my first. So many things.
Because I finished the thing I've been doing on Patreon. You know, the Book of Holy Fuck is done last month, and then I was like, well, I don't really know what to do next. And then I was like, I want to do a podcast about the afterlife. Who do I want? And I was like, I'm only going to have guests on who are my favorite people to talk to. Who was my favorite person to talk to? Lauren fucking Faber.
That's
who.
And who thinks a lot about death.
Yeah, exactly. I thought you'd be the perfect first
It's probably
guest.
like that overlap is probably a circle.
Yeah. I'm actually surprised by when we were on tour. I feel like we talked about death very little. So now is our chance.
Yeah,
Carly's not here to steer us back towards more positive conversations.
And the time when I was feeling deathy, I was ashamed of it, so I didn't talk about it.
Yeah, same. I was like, I'm doing great. Everybody's happy. We're having fun.
I was like, I ruin everything, and I'm so weird, and nobody wants to hang out with me, and I just leave, and I ruin everything, and nothing will ever make me happy.
No way. All right, I'm introing the podcast now. Ready? This is my first one. This is our first intro. Hi, and welcome to What's Next with Emma Arnold. And then there'll be a theme song. That's the theme song. I'm very excited. This is the first episode of the show, and my very first guest ever is my favorite person, my favorite comedian, Lauren Faber. Lauren, say hello.
It's me. Hello.
Yay.
Oh my gosh, what an honor.
I just want to start off by telling you, you have the best bio. Because I was like, just pulled a bio for you so that I wouldn't have to be like, Lauren, tell us about yourself. So I pulled a bio, and your bio is so well written and so funny.
Oh,
it's very good. So Lauren Faber was the 2018 stand-up NBC semifinalist. 2016, you won She Devil, and you were Carolina's funniest. And this is so flattering to me that you, in your bio of all these cool things you've done, you said she tours with Emma Arnold. And I was like,
hell yeah.
my God.
It should be toured, but I'm leaving it open.
No, open-ended.
Because who knows what's next, you know?
I think when COVID is over, I've been thinking about, I want to do like a 3-week tour, and you and me, and we just we get a camper van.
Oh, shit.
And we just like make a loop, baby.
Oh my God.
We could do a third, but I don't know if Carly's open. I don't know if
she's in school.
She's in school. I know.
Good for her.
Mm-hmm.
I am doing a show on Saturday, and I've already been in a bad mood for 3 days. So
I can't.
we just have to give me like a year, a little notice so I can get in a mental place. I really hate comedy and doing it, but
it seems like right now, like I haven't done a show since March because I haven't done any of the Zoom stuff. I haven't done anything.
I did a couple. It was not great.
I sat in on a couple to be supportive of people, and I was like, I am never doing this. This looks like my nightmare.
It's rough. I did a college show for like 6 kids, and they all like muted and then turned their screens off. And I was like, you get back in here right now and you let me hear you laugh, or this is not happening.
Oh my God. Yeah, that I feel like, I totally get why people are doing it, and I respect it. And like for the people like Lori Kilmartin who are just like, I've written 2 new hours. Go, I'm like,
well, she had a lot happen. She had a lot happen. She's got a lot
she
had a real gold mine there.
Yeah, busy couple of months.
She's been crushing. Ugh,
but I haven't. I've written like 3 jokes, and one of them I ran by my mom, who's usually the person who I open mic things on, because she's a hard laugh. She's a hard laugh. So if she laughs, you're like, this one's good. And she laughed really hard. So I have 1 joke.
Nice.
Post-COVID, I got 1 joke.
I think my new post-COVID stuff is just a lot of me screaming, which, is what I've been told to do. People are like, we want to hear you more angry. We love that part when you're angry. And I'm like, you say that, but I wonder how much angry lesbian we need to, yeah?
I always loved you angry. Where is your show?
It's in this old historic, the Carolina Theater, and there's like this big room because it's also a convention hall, and there's a big room that has windows and a balcony like overlooking the facade of the movie theater, and we're going to be up in the window and everyone else is going to be outside on the street. Wow. And I'm going to do like a Donald Trump COVID victory Evita moment.
Oh my God. I mean, that's very creative. I give it to them because like I was talking to somebody who just came through Boise, and they were doing a bunch of indoor shows, all these places, and I was like, "What the
Was
fuck
it a
are you?"
man?
Yeah, of course it was. And I was like, "What are you fucking doing? Oh my god!" So at least that's a creative solution.
Yeah, I got offered an online college show, which like pays a lot. And I literally was like, oh, I'm not in a hurry. We can just wait till this all clears up. And then my college agent has not gotten out in touch with me again because that was a really dumb thing to say.
Really?
But I'm really like, we don't need to find a way to accommodate. We can just not do comedy for a few years and everyone can just
I guess that
chill
would,
out.
yeah, they'd probably make people be like, well, then I guess I'm not repping you right now if you're.
Yeah. Guess you're not serious. Guess you don't have the drive. I'm like,
I don't. I
wanna
do
do
not.
this.
I'm not doing the. And I've gotten offered a few like Zoom shows and a couple like the Punchline talked to me about doing some stuff and like some other places, but I was just like, it doesn't pay as much and it looks excruciating. And I would rather that like when this is over, my fans are like desperate to see me and really excited, not like we watched you be real weird for about a year and a half.
Kind of changed the way we thought about everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I
Mary
guess I
Matt
am
came
doing.
to town.
I'm doing the live streams now, which is just basically me being
You talking?
myself.
How's that going?
It's
Because that's what people think stand-up is. They think we're just like hanging out with them on stage, and it's
I think
Not
people are
exactly.
surprised that I'm a lot quieter because I just decided I was like, if I do these like live things and if I do this Twitch stuff, I'm not gonna like, it's not gonna be stand-up. I'm not gonna pad it with, you know, your stand-up persona, which is like the best, most charming, likable version of you.
right.
You know,
Yeah.
maybe for some people it's not, but for me, that is who you're dealing with is like turned on all the way up, Emma, you know?
Like, are there sweet, quiet people who go out on stage and are lunatic? I guess there are. I guess that's
Yeah. I mean, and like they do like a whole act, I guess. Yeah,
where they're
for sure.
jerks, and they're not jerks in real life. I found that people on stage who are jerks are jerks.
Yeah, they just are jerks.
They're like, wouldn't it be funny if I went on stage and was a jerk? And it was like, we see you. We see
Yeah.
you. You're just
no, it's just an act. It's like, it's never an act.
It's never an act.
Mm-mm. I mean, that is one thing. Like, people always tell you who they are with their comedy.
Yeah. People
And it's
tell
like-
you a lot
Like Chris
more
D'Elia
than...
being like, I fuck teenagers. I'm joking.
Wouldn't it be funny if that were true? It is, though. Yeah. Why are you thinking about that so much?
Well, I'm excited. I'm excited for your Saturday show. I want to hear how it goes afterward. You got to tell me.
It's like in public, so I can't curse because it's 4 p.m. and there are children
Yeah.
in the wild.
So it's like a clean set.
Broad
A
daylight.
clean Evita set is what
on a
you're
balcony.
doing.
Yeah.
Wow, that's the kind of thing pre-COVID I would have agreed to and done what you're doing is being mad for 2 weeks leading up to it. Like, why would I say yes to this?
Well, what would you do during COVID differently?
I've just said no to everything.
Oh.
Everything anybody asks me to do, I'm like, nope. I feel like it's possible I'm milking the autoimmune thing during COVID because I realized
Don't
that
gaslight yourself.
Thank you, Lauren.
It's real.
It is real. But I feel like, well, and you're right. And it's just partly that I'm like, I could probably do that, but I got this thing that'll make me die. So I'm being a baby.
Our brains are not built to make accurate risk assessments. We're like, I don't know, I didn't die those 10 times. I guess I should like plank
Yeah.
on a building. And it's like, no.
I'm like, I have to go get blood drawn. That's no different than doing comedy.
I know. People were like, you went to the grocery store one time, so why can't we film a TV show in your house for a week? And I'm like, what? The fact that I went to a grocery store is reason why we shouldn't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't been to a grocery store since April.
What are you doing? Are you Instacarting?
No, the market next to us does pickup. So I just do that. For a while, I had a guy. There was this lovely, like, my mom was like, I found a guy.
Found a
And it was like
man.
it's like a 23-year-old. He was a real go-getter. He was like doing Instacart, but personally and for half the price. And he was like very, very great. And he was doing that. But he invented,
No, what happened?
He invented a hot chocolate thing. And now he's rich. He made $6,000 in 2 days and he doesn't need me anymore. He doesn't need to go get my Rice Krispies.
I really need to evaluate every part of that. So he made $6,000 and now he retired?
Well, no. So he came up with these little like gift boxes that are I don't think he invented the actual thing, but I don't know for sure.
Chocolate that's hot.
No. It's Lauren. It's a ball of chocolate that's a hard candy shell, and you put it in a cup, and then you pour hot water on it, and it explodes.
Okay.
And inside is hot chocolate and marshmallows.
All right.
I'll
I've seen this as a dessert, but he put it in a mug.
It is, and then but he puts it in a little box, and it's like a gift, and you send it to people. And he started taking orders, and now he has money, and he doesn't need me. So.
It's like a bath bomb.
It's like a bath bomb, but for hot chocolate.
Hot chocolate.
Yeah, it's pretty.
At first,
fun.
I was gonna be like, this sounds like those people who just patented toast.
Yeah.
They're like, no, it's different. It stays dry, and I was like, okay. Who is working at the patent office? We need you to.
Oh, this guy, he nailed toast. I made French bread and homemade apple butter today. Wow. Yeah, that's what I'm doing in COVID. I've gone back to being. People forget that I was a housewife before
I never
all of
do.
this. Thank you.
I think of you as a woods wife.
A woods wife.
I think of you as a pioneer woman from Old Yeller.
That's exactly.
I imagine like a lot of drying meats.
Yes,
on your porch.
I hang fish above the stove to dry.
You gotta do it.
Today I thought, my God, I haven't canned all summer, and so I whipped up a batch of apple butter.
Doing? Do you have an orchard? Where'd you get those apples?
My parents have several apple trees, and my mom had brought over this monster box of apples, huge, and so then I made them into apple butter. But I forgot that when you take a 5-pound box of apples and make it into apple butter, you get like 4 jars of apple butter.
Yeah,
you don't use a lot of the apple.
Unsatisfying. You're like, I did 12 hours of work and I have an ounce of this.
It was very unsatisfying, and also the bread didn't come out great. So it's just been rough all around today.
Jamel came into my office yesterday, and she's like, "Can I just throw out this friggin' starter?" And I was like, "You can." You can.
You threw out your sourdough starter.
She was like, I don't give a shit anymore, and I've been feeding this bullshit for months and not cooking anything. And I was like, yeah, you're allowed. A lot of people have birthed and murdered their starter.
Did you guys did you ever make anything with it?
We made 4 loaves, and they were bread, and that was great. That's great. It's good to know we can do it.
When it's nice to know you can do. When the kids were little, I made bread every day, and every day it would be gone in 15 minutes. And then eventually I realized if you just buy store-bought bread, they eat a normal amount of bread because it's not like right out of the oven hot and delicious. So then I stopped making bread, but during COVID I've been making bread again.
So what did they eat instead? Did they eat less?
Everything.
Okay.
Everything. Yeah. They were like giving me a hard time about something the other day because I have all those I have like mom notes all over the house. Like if you open a cupboard, it's like a little angry red note that's like, no, these cups are for coffee and cocos. Use a water cup for water. I have all these. Everything has a little note along with it. And they were giving me a hard time about that, and I was like, all I do is cook and do dishes. That's all I do. And so, I'm going to leave angry notes about it.
Yeah. Did you think I was not going to be furious? Did you think that you could just extract that labor for me and it would not cost you anything?
They did think that. They thought that.
That's what the world teaches boys.
I know. And I've done it. I'm doing it, Lauren. I didn't think I was. I'm raising 3. I asked them to come and help me dig some holes the other day. Hours of bitching before, during, after. It's like so much bitching and complaining.
Years from now, they'll be like, Mom, do you remember when there was a crisis and you enslaved us? And you're like, what?
Exactly. That's
how I got real traumatized, and that's why I can never have a job, and I sold my children.
And so live with you.
What? Yeah, you did this.
I know. That's exactly I was having them shovel compost, and they were like, you never had to do this? You never had to do this when you were a kid? I was like, we lived on a farm. I got up at 5 a.m.
I was a bee. You don't know.
And I was like, we did this. These were your morning chores every day. This is what you did.
A warm up.
Yeah. And then you did afternoon chores after school. And then you did actual hard labor on the weekends and on holidays. And they were like, oh my God, all you do is bitch about your childhood. And I was like, that is true.
Did I interrupt your bitching to bitch? Do forgive me. It's, you're going to get away with whatever you can get away with. Even as the masculiner one in my relationship, I am doing all that bullshit. I read that New York Times article where dads were like, I don't know, she just likes to be busy. And I was like, haha, what a jerk. And then Muno looked at me and was like, yeah.
I wish I had chosen, or I wish I was like built for that role. I think I've always been the femme person who takes care of everybody, probably since I was about 6, you know. That's
Fight,
like
flight, fawn.
Yeah, fawn. Yeah. Well, you guys seem mad, so I'm going to make some apple butter. Okay.
I can earn your love, right? Because it's apparently not something I deserve, being born as a child and a full human being. Perhaps there's a task I can perform.
You know what? I'm going to go put away some laundry because that makes me feel like I have purpose. So
I have found myself doing that where I'm just like screwing stuff into things. And she's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I just feel like you're going to be mad at me soon. And I want to just save up stuff I did. I hung some curtains. She's like, okay, did you empty the dishwasher? I don't know.
No, but
I don't like that one. I like screwing things.
Yeah, I guess that's, maybe my kids will eventually end up, my sons will be like those kind of guys where they're like, I don't put away my own laundry, but look, I built you these shelves.
Like doing chores gives me gender dysmorphia. So I'm just going to buy furniture you didn't ask for and partially paint it and then just leave it for a while.
Man, you're ready to be a husband, sounds like.
I am. I'm a super dad.
Super dad.
I find myself being such a, like, all the awful fathers you read about in books, where I'm so like, get out of my office, I'm working. I'm annoyed by things. I withhold approval. And I'm like, I mean, you did okay, but like your long division still, I'm just seeing all these things where I was like, why would a father do that? And I'm like, oh, because I wanted to be playing video games. And for 4 minutes a day, I had to be an adult. And I was real bitter about it because I didn't see that coming.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I remember when my kids at one point, like one day being like, oh, I like get why my biological father abandoned us. Because like you can. Like I haven't yet, but it just turns out like you just can. You can just be like, nope, no. I'm out. I don't feel like doing this anymore. It's bullshit. I'm bad at it. Goodbye.
I'd rather not. And apparently that's one of the options. So I'm going to go with that one.
Yeah. You can just walk away.
And you can say things
like, look at your lighting. I'm so furious. Your lighting looks so good. And look at me. I look like I caught on fire at the beginning of this. I'm bright red. You can see every pore. I'm so greasy.
I can't see any of your pores. I haven't showered in weeks. I've worn one pair of pants since February, basically. Because I went into quarantine early because I'm special. But I got so much paint on them that I couldn't wear them out. So then I bought another pair of the exact same gray stretchy jeans. So those are my fancy pants. And I just wear the same ones every single day. And I've washed them maybe 3 times. I remember in high school we had like French exchange students came and they wore like the same clothes 2 days in a row. And we were like, oh my God, the French are disgusting. And now I'm like, hell yeah, they knew what was up.
I have 2 pair of pants and same. It's like my comfortable pants and then I actually have to like do something pants. But I actually have, what I have is a house dress. And it is so comfortable. It's tropical patterned. They have to be.
Got it.
And it's just like billowy and so soft. It feels like butter.
Really?
I love it. Yeah.
Still no desire.
House dress, I'm telling you. But maybe you could get like a house dress, except it's like it has pants, so it's like a onesie, but very loose, very movable.
They made this thing. It's like sweatpants and a sweatshirt, but they're connected, and you have to like zip into them.
Oh, sounds like a lot.
Because then you got to get top naked when you pee.
Yeah, that doesn't sound more comfortable. A onesie is not more comfortable.
What's the advantage? Is it are many people plagued by the separation between their sweatshirt and sweatpants?
Yes, because there are certain people who like no matter what, when they bend down, they show butt crack. You know, so maybe the people who show butt crack are like, I'm not doing this anymore.
I've had enough.
I'm not doing.
Well, I'm glad they found their toast.
Their toast.
Twist on an old thing. Good for them. I'm so happy for them.
Are you ready to start the real podcast? This is our catching up the yakking part.
This is, what do they call that before? Banter. We
We were
bantered.
bantering. Yeah.
And now
we
we're
were
going to
doing
talk about our
banter.
favorite death, the afterlife.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you a few questions. You can take your time. We can come back to them. They're not very serious. 2 are podcast questions, and then I have 2 questions that are, one is a special question for you, and one is a seasonal question. So they're all, I can see you're such an A student. You're like, well, I'm going to fucking.
I was like, I thought you said 3 and those were 4, but okay.
That was 4. Well, you're right. It's actually.
Extra
'cause
credit.
I added on a question because I was curious about something. So
You get to. You
Yeah.
initiated the podcast link request, so you get to find out whatever you wanted to know.
yeah, you remember you had to stay in the green room before you came on.
It was rough. I was like,
I did not know that was
in
the
there. Who got in? Why not me?
I know. I was like, oh, I didn't know there was a green room. How do I get you? How do I find you? Well, here it is. I ran this question by you before to make sure you were okay with answering it. This is the first question out of the podcast. I'm going to ask this of everybody. And I ran this by you to make sure you felt okay with it. What is the closest you've ever come to dying, Lauren?
Yeah, I thought about it. And the first thing I thought of was a time like a tire was bouncing down the highway at my car. And I just happened to go right under it. And I think that was the closest I came to like death occurring.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very likely that there are other situations that I've blocked out completely. I remember my dad once saying, remember when you saw that guy get murdered in Tanzania? And I was like, no. And then after an hour, I was like, oh, I know what he's talking about. Yeah. But I think probably the closest, and this is just a testament to how fortunate and white and American I am, the closest I've come was probably me killing myself. I think approaching. There've been a lot of times when I have felt close. And I guess the closest probably that I ever came was when I got real upset in Columbus, Ohio during a comedy festival and drove like an hour and a half to the tallest bridge in Ohio, doing a lot of planning about how I would make sure that my body was identified. And then I got there and I was reading about it, and they talked about the patrols that are there because people love to jump. And I was like, what if like I get interrupted and that'll be so embarrassing? So I got like stage fright and didn't do it.
Stage right.
I was like, how stupid would I look if somebody was like, ma'am? And I'd be like, oh, yeah, it was.
Yeah, I get that. I get like just it's a solitary act. You don't want to be interrupted, and you don't want then to have to like make that, because when someone interrupts you, then you have to like make the split-second decision of like, I'm jumping before you can grab me, or I'm letting you grab me.
And now they have to live the rest of their life with either having succeeded or not succeeded. I've spent a lot of time contemplating the options, and perhaps it's an indicator of how maybe like histrionic and not serious I am, that like life is at those moments is not acceptable, but also like ruining someone's day would be equally unacceptable.
That's very, both of us have that, where it's like violence against yourself. Sure, why not? But
Totally.
like being rude.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because like I don't want, someone's gonna have to find that, and it's like, okay, how messy is it gonna be? Like if I get one of those devices and asphyxiate myself, like, okay, I guess I have to wear a diaper so no one has to like clean that up, because I assume that'll be part of it. And then by then I'm like, oh, well, you can't even buy the right helium saturation in the US. And then it's like 3 days later and I'm like feeling better. So it's just really important that I never own a gun.
I'm putting on a diaper, you're like,
well, now this
am I ready to
stupid.
die? Yeah. I don't want to put on a diaper to die.
I just wish there was an opportunity at those moments to like push a baby carriage out of the way of an oncoming bus and just die quickly and heroically. But I've never had one of those chances, and the odds of it happening when I'm in that mode, very unlikely.
So did something happen at this comedy festival? Did something trigger this, or you just were feeling bad? You know, I mean, I've done comedy at festivals long enough to know that's enough. So
it was, I mean, first of all, it was Ohio. So I feel like that answers a lot of it. It was a conversation that I had with somebody kind of relaying a conversation they just had with their therapist, and just I think that we were both distracted and maybe they weren't aware of what was like being transmitted to me, but it was kind of like somebody saying like that I was doing all of the things that I'm most afraid that I might be doing. And they were like, yeah, none of that's acceptable. Like all of this stuff that, you know, Lauren, thinks that she has a right to and has and is enjoying is wrong and hurtful to you, and she shouldn't get that. And I was like, cool, okay, well, I am deeply ashamed and unmoored, and am now convinced that the thing that I found that I thought would finally make me happy is not something I can have. So, a good day.
And wait, they were saying this more like about themselves, and you sort of took it, or it was like literally they were saying it about you.
Yeah, the therapist was like, Lauren thinks that she gets to be a child and that you are going to mother her.
Wow.
And the fact that Lauren wasn't mothered and has not found a way to have her own happiness doesn't mean that you have to do that. She can't do that. That's bad and evil and wrong, and she's a monster and is hurting you in her happiness. And I was like, fair enough.
Oh my God.
Peace out.
I mean, I hope I don't have to tell you that's like, I hopefully not what that therapist actually said. It was the person hoping to hurt you by relaying this information.
No,
You think a therapist really was like, Lauren doesn't deserve caretaking and kindness and compassion?
I think, you know, when you have a therapist, their responsibility is to you. And I think they were communicating that this person didn't get enough of their own being taken care of, that this person was in crisis and transition and having a hard time. And it was not appropriate for them to have to take on the mothering role of an adult human being, that they were healing and they deserved a chance to be a child and be equally taken care of, that it's just not appropriate for somebody to exist in a child space because something rough happened to them. Like, they need to be in therapy. I need to be in therapy and taking care of myself. And even though the world tells women and mothers that they are responsible for all of these things and everyone's feelings, that was not appropriate. And I had gone to one session with that person. So the therapist kept saying, like, you know, I don't know her. We haven't actually met. This is just my sense. And he was just kind of like making some leaps, and maybe they were fair and maybe they weren't. But when I'm ashamed and I am in a space where I feel like I need to defend myself, that's when I get into a weird spiral, because I've really hated people being defensive and not taking criticism. So when I feel like I might be wrong and someone's telling me, I just go into like a weird loop crash where I'm like, that's not fair, but maybe it is fair. But maybe you shouldn't say that. Maybe I should say that. And then it just gets into a sneaky hate spiral. And I end up usually deciding, like, well, I'm going to just annihilate myself to the point where I'm not hurting anyone anymore. And if they feel like I deserve it, they can come rescue me. Which, again, so much responsibility being put on that other person when I could just somehow learn how to manage my own emotions.
Is it to punish them at all? Or is it just kind of strictly like that you're
probably
feeling ashamed? Yeah.
If somebody says something to you that's upsetting and then you try to or plan or get on killing yourself, that's an awful thing to do to that person. Absorbed in my own pain as I can be. And I think that's usually part of what in me. Myself that, like, yeah, I want that. I want them to live with that further. The worst thing I'm capable of, probably.
I witnessed it pretty firsthand with Dylan, my ex, partner, lose his ex-partner. And it was very much done in like she had several attempts. And it was very much often done as like, and in no way, like when I say cry for help, I think that a lot of times comes off to people as like dismissive or judgmental, but like a lot of times it was like more cry for helpy than serious. And I think, the thought was with the family and stuff that the time it finally happened, it was meant to be more cry for helpy, and it nobody came, so.
Yeah.
But
Did you see Midsummer?
Yes. Yeah. It was my favorite movie. And
I love it so much.
I immediately talked to a male comedian about how I loved it and how it was such a perfect embodiment of like the ways that women do not have anywhere to grieve collectively, and that we have to go through all these milestones, like losing your virginity to a person with a penis, and like you have to go through all these things on your own, and they're all terrifying. And I loved the communal grieving that they did with her. Mm-hmm. And he was like, "What?" And I was like,
that bitch was crazy.
And he was like, "What are you saying?" And I was like, the movie was about women's pain. And he was like, "No, it wasn't." And I was
I didn't see that.
How did you? And I was right then, I was like,
they even when you cannot detect it.
You cannot. It was. And then he was like, he didn't like it very much. He thought it was kind of boring.
Because things were subtle. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and dudes were doing like there were so many stages, so many moments where I was like, murder him, murder him right now.
So many stages where you're like, that has that exact conversation. Mm-hmm. I have been like, oh no, but that is my work. That is mine. That's mine.
I did that.
And they're like, oh, I can't believe you're doing this to me right now.
Whoa, you're really harshing my vibe. Like, it's really important to me to have done this. And you're saying I didn't just because I didn't? Like, what is that? You're like, what?
Yeah.
What?
Why are you like this? And then
don't you understand that your feelings don't matter? And they're like, no, your feelings don't exist. And you're like, wait.
Yeah, that movie was I loved it. I thought it was so beautiful and powerful. And
she's so amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, she's my favorite.
She left that and then showed up late and made Little Women, wherein she was also amazing.
She was amazing in that. I didn't feel Little Women as hard as I wanted to. Like, I went really ready to feel it super hard and ready to be like, yes, Little Women.
They're so little and they're women.
Instead, I was kind of like, it's something feels really off. I don't know. Something about it just like, it never quite clicked with me.
I think I was very much in a space of like, why am I not writing a book? I should be writing a book. Why don't I just write a book? I could write a book. And then I was like, she wrote a book. It's a real journey to writing a book. It was just about book writing for me. And that meant a lot. I felt it. I was like, I want to live that life.
Yeah.
People die and I write a book.
That does sound pretty nice.
Yeah. It ended with like the book being printed and I was like, this is incredible. What a triumph for the ages.
A woman wrote a book.
She wrote it. She didn't need no man. No. Loved it. Loved it. It was rough because we saw it with like children and they had nobody that I saw it with like 6 people and none of them could follow what time period it was. I was like, no, it's yellow and her hair's short. That means that it's different time. And they were like, hey, I thought she died already. And I was like, just everyone go outside and wait. I will come out with my book when it's done. I think I enjoyed it despite everyone around me not enjoying it. I think you went in and you were, your experience contrasted with the experience you expected to have, and mine contrasted with the experience everyone else was having.
I can't remember why I didn't like it now. Like, it's been long enough that I feel like I just remember leaving kind of being like, and everybody was tweeting about it at the time and talking about how much they loved it. And I was like,
yeah,
I keep most of my opinions to myself because I feel like usually if people are like, we loved it, I'm always like, I thought it was dumb.
I didn't get it.
I don't like it. I just am very picky. And so, something has to be.
I, as a default, I'm like, that was great. People are like, it was incredibly problematic. And I'm like, oh, yes, I see what you're saying. Yes, I take back that before.
You're a big fan of Boss Baby?
I've actually seen that multiple times.
Me too, because of the kids,
Aren't they a little old for that?
The youngest likes it.
Okay, that's fine.
He liked it. I'm
not going to yuck anyone's yum. Good for Alec Baldwin. He's a professional adult.
Yeah.
There was a moment in Little Women when the mother said something like, I'm angry every day of my life. And I think Greta Gerwig talked about the experience of like finding that quote when she reread it. And she was like, I've never seen that in a single adaptation. That like Ma is just this flat, boring, like almost as though she's not there, just embodiment of mothering and patience and kindness and goodness. And it's like they never gave her justice. She is furious.
Yeah. Yeah,
and complicated, and we don't hear
Laura
that.
Dern played her pretty perky still. Like, I thought that too. Like, oh. I think it's just that every movie in that time period that I watch, I go, well, it's no Pride and Prejudice. So.
Which one?
I like the Keira Knightley one with the guy from Succession as Mr. Darcy. I don't know his name, but I like him.
I don't know. I've never watched that show.
It's great, Lauren. It's
Okay.
great. You would actually like Mr. Darcy. He's very hair floppy and sad.
Foppish.
No, just sad.
Brooding?
He's just sad. Just real silent in corners and talking about death when people don't want him to. I don't know. Just
Feels a little too close. No, there's nothing that makes me hate anyone more than reminding me of myself.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, that piece of shit. Look at them thinking they're so funny with their boy haircut. I want to kill them. And I'm like, wait, Lauren, there can be more than one.
I feel that
share
way.
Your space.
If there's a comedian named Emma, I'm always like,
what a piece of shit.
And then they're always lovely and very funny, and I'm like, that's fine.
Oh, cool. Great.
That's great. That's good for
Awesome.
you. That's nice. I like that you're doing comedy. That's nice for you.
Yeah. I guess you get the love today. You get all of it. Drink my
Enjoy it,
milkshake.
Emma Willman. Enjoy it. She's
Poor
great.
Emma Willman. Oh my God. We did 2 shows in Chapel Hill to 8 people total
Oh God.
because the venue didn't put the tickets on the internet.
Oh.
They're doing great. They're doing great.
That was my last tour. Was one of those where they're like, yeah, we never put it on the website. So there's good turnout. There's 22 people.
Considering it's all people that you personally invited who know you.
Yeah. And you're like, hello, Kalamazoo, you know.
The greatest show ever was the show that we didn't do.
And where?
Wasn't it Atlanta? When we showed up and we were like,
Oh my
we are
God.
the show. And they were
Oh my
like,
God.
who is it that you think you are that is the show? And we were like, uh-oh. And they forgot
And that
they
guy
booked
was
us.
so rude. Not the owner of the club, the guy who was on the comedy show. Like, hi, I'm Emma. And I was like so friendly. And he's like, who do you think you are?
What?
Who do you think you are? I'm like,
Because that was the day when we were rolling in hot every show and
Oh,
we were
yeah.
feeling bad and we were like, we're not late to the show. We are the show. And that
Yeah.
was the night that we were like, look out, everybody, the show's here. And they
Oh
were
my
like,
God.
what show do you think you are?
I forgot that. That was when I would get anxious about being late. That's what Jeff Tate would always tell me. We can't be late. We're the show. And I would always be like,
Well, that's
I
a
just
man thing.
really want to be on time though.
And I'm like, sorry, we can't be. We need to go find this defunct chicken preserve. Gonna be great, guys. Don't worry.
I forgot that. Yeah. And then I just stand there and wait for our money and just not leave and just be like, we're not leaving till you pay us. We're not leaving till you pay us.
Someone started to say, it's okay. And I was like, no, it's not. Don't.
Yeah.
Let him swing.
Let
Let
him
him
swing.
swing until he's so uncomfortable he gives us all of our money and then we
And
can
it
go.
worked. We just stood there and he paid us. He paid us in full. So
He was like, I knew I booked a woman, but I don't know how to search my email. So I asked the woman I know, and she said she didn't have a show. So
Yeah.
I figured it was fine.
That's one of those venues too that if you talk shit, people are like, that place is great. He's great. Oh my God, they're great. And I'm like, they're
closed.
Your
I think
bar is just low.
that's
He hasn't raped anybody and he's not as
So.
bad as the other guy in town. So
like top 5%.
yeah, that's comedy.
Pretty good. But stuff like that moment when we were like, let's own our shit, and then we got
Yeah.
slapped so hard. That's the only thing that ever makes me believe in a god, is how like specific and swift and hilarious retribution is from the universe.
That we were like, yeah, we were feeling pretty hot shit. I think that was that the day we went to the aquarium?
It may or may not have been.
So allegedly there may or may not have been some
Someone
things.
real slow poured a gin and tonic on a child's foot looking at a whale.
That is my most favorite moment ever in any comedy tour. It was the best thing that's ever happened.
Lauren, your drink, Lauren. And I looked at it and I said, oh no.
So slow.
And still didn't stop.
No.
Oh no. I think it was like empty. I think it just stopped when it was done.
It was. And the little girl was just staring at both of us. And I was like, I like set your drink back up and was like, Alicia, go sit down. And she was like, mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm 6 and I can tell that you're making bad choices.
Yeah, you're
Everything's
right about
clear when you're 6, kiddo.
You're right about the God thing, because that we really like, we rolled into that show. We were totally like, let's fucking own this. See, that's who I've turned into during quarantine, is I finally have just been like, I'm gonna live in my power. You know, I'm gonna take, you know, just be like, boom, I'm not. And then that's it. Every time.
But is that
I've done
because
it,
you're like only interacting with yourself and your own children?
Yeah, and I'm great at being very assertive. I'm really good at confrontation with myself.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping if I get so good at that here later when we're ready to go on the road, I'll be all fire, you know?
Or we could just never interact with anyone else ever again.
That's true. We could be like, part of our act is that we have somebody who deals with everything and we have to be sequestered in the back in a minivan, you know, and we don't come out until showtime.
Yeah, it should be a very dramatic, like, oh my God, it's them. Like they shouldn't see us setting up.
Like
anything.
Sia. Like we could be this like the Sias of
What do they look
comedy.
like? Yeah.
They never see our face until we're like right there.
Wait, her name is Sia and you never see her.
Okay. You're ready. You're ready for that show.
I gotta
Saturday.
go. I gotta. I'm in a tunnel. I'm breaking
There's a
up.
bridge with my name on it. I gotta.
I'm Edmund Pettis. I'm a racist. Anywho.
Okay, you ready for your second question?
Yes.
I'm so excited this is part of the reason I invited you on here, is because I don't think a lot of people know how into God and the Bible, and you're probably the most educated person I know on all that stuff.
Thank you.
People maybe don't know that you were like
youth. Very nearly a nun. It was close.
Yeah, I was gonna say you almost were a nun.
I still regret it sometimes.
It seems honestly
Not
like
being
a
a
pretty
nun.
chill lifestyle.
It was. I have a joke, but it's not exactly what happened. But I'd say that I was talking to a therapist, and I was like, I want to be a nun. She was like, you don't want to be a nun. You want to wear the same thing every day, do light construction like you're in Sister Act, and live in a house with 50 women. And I was like,
shit,
nailed it. Is there another women's college? Okay, I'll do that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All set. Thank you.
Well, my question for you is, what are your personal beliefs about the afterlife? What do you think happens when you die?
What captures my belief about the afterlife is I feel like it's a quote from the Vita or some sort of allusion to it, but it is just that we are as distinct from an ocean. And I think that what we perceive as a solid distance, as our individual life, is a misperception, and that we're kind of like a wave that for a moment exists as a thing, but is really part of the whole thing. So I think that the illusion of existing ends and we go on being the thing that all of us are together, which is a unitary thing. I don't think that there is anything beyond the self we believe we are. Everything we see and hear is constructed by our brain to look like a local, conscious, physical phenomenon, but I think that it really is not. I don't know what that means or what I'm supposed to do with it, other than endeavor to treat all people as myself, which isn't great because I don't treat myself super amazing. But to encounter other people with an understanding that we are one. It sounds so corny, but stuff that you yell at a march. And no justice, no peace, injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. It's I listened to around when I stopped believing in God as a person who keeps track of stuff and can be bought off with like wearing the right scapular. That was my Catholic upbringing. What did happen in a conversation I had with my therapist was that she said she didn't really think I believed in God. She just thought that was the only thing my mom liked about me. So I went pretty hard in the Catholicism, trying to win that love. And as soon as she said that, I was like, mm-hmm. And then I went home and I read an essay by Antonio Gramsci called History. It's in his prison writings in a compilation. I must have gone home and like flipped to the index and looked for God. And it said basically that we are like bowstrings carrying symphony of human history. That, again, like though we are distinct, we're just a vehicle for one thing that is happening. We don't need the superstitions of history to comfort us. And I think that was my only concern when I was letting go of God was like, well, then what gives me purpose? How do I exist in a world that is random and chaotic and indifferent? I don't want that. But when I look at people who don't live that way, who think that there is like a sentient being steering everything, resulting from that accepting awful things happening to other people and saying like, well, my life is fine, obviously, because God wanted that and I'm dope. And sorry, your kids got to the border. Everything happens for a reason. And it's like, it is random and terrible. I guess his book was The Gospel of Inclusion, but Carlton Pearson, he was sitting like in his lazy boy, his green TV, watching the Tutsis return to Rwanda after the genocide. And he remembered letting this happen. Why are you doing this to these people? And then they're going to have to go to hell for not knowing you. And he said that God to him, do you think that's what I'm doing? Do you think I would put people through and then condemn? If you believe that, why are you sitting there and eating? Why aren't you going anything about it? And he was like, maybe Jim Jones or one of those big guys. He was their successor. And he just announced to his megachurch that he didn't believe in hell anymore and that everything happened on earth. And earth was in which we had the opportunity to recognize God and other people and be good to them. And everyone left his church.
No, thank you.
Now, it's very important to us that somebody be burning in hell. That makes sense.
Did you believe in hell as a kid? Were you like a true, so your therapist said you didn't believe. Were you ever a true believer?
I guess, yes. And I think I still believe in either I realize or people in my life appreciate. I read a lot of C.S. Lewis after high school. He wrote The Great Divorce, where he talks about, it's kind of like an allegory, a dream that somebody has. And they go to this purgatory and they're visited by these beings of light. There's a bus that takes them up to another place that is so much more real. They realize that they have no mass, that a blade of grass is like a diamond cutting through their foot. And these glowing beings come to them and try to invite them to heaven. But in order to do it, they have to let go of things. For some, it's appetite. And an angel like strikes this little lizard on a man's shoulder that's always whispering selfish things. And when he lets go of it and it's struck down, it rises again as a beautiful unicorn or something. And they fly off together. And there's a mother who won't go to heaven unless her son comes to collect her. And they're like, he's happy. You need to let him go. You smothered him with your love. You thought it was a good thing, but you made it a bad thing. And the person guiding the narrator is like, you saw the risen form of that lizard, of that appetite. Imagine then what would be the risen form of maternal love. I took my mother to see a one-man show of it. And when the guy said that, I cried and looked at her and she was not paying attention. And I was like, I really thought this was going to be the thing. I thought this was going to be the thing. I think I believed in an all-knowing, universal something that didn't have a gender, that wasn't something we could comprehend, that was ultimately love. I believed that sin and all of those things were just a very childish way of explaining that. There's the theory of moral development and there's an early age where like you learn the rule. And if you get stuck there, then you're the kind of person who's like, you know, it doesn't matter that we stole their children at the border because they broke the rule and walked where they weren't supposed to walk. And it's like, yes, but if you had a more developed moral sense, you would understand that we are responsible for the horrific conditions that they are fleeing, and that that is an inhumane thing to do to somebody who's trying to help their children. You learn nuance, and I think that you don't need a laundry list of things that are not allowed, words you're not supposed to say, days on which you're not supposed to eat certain things. I felt like moving away from the kosher laws was an evolution. Sorry, people who are Jewish. I think it's a lovely practice and something to be very, keep you mindful. But I think it's Peter, something 23. He said he had a dream where Jesus came to him and he said basically like, through me, all things are clean. That there's nothing you can eat that makes you unclean. The only sins that exist are in your heart. That doesn't matter really if you murder somebody or not. If you've murdered them in your heart, then you've already done it. I think I felt that most of what I was taught was a dumbed down version, and that anyone with a true or deep enough understanding of Catholicism would get to something that made a lot more sense and was reasonable, and that I do still kind of believe is true. I'm done with the church because ultimately, you know, with Jesus handing Peter the keys or whatever, saying you're the rock on which I build my church, the sins you hold bound on earth are held bound in heaven. It came down to assigning to man the powers and authorities of God, and that's never going to work out for me because man sucks. And I think that's the sin in the DNA, the original sin of the church and religion, and that's never going to be purged. So I'm over that, but I do think that all religions are in their best form saying the exact same thing. I think people talk about like a fundamentalist religion as though it's like getting back to the roots of what's truest about a faith, but I think those are just the most unevolved versions of them. I think every faith ultimately says that life and the suffering of life is in some way an illusion, that there is a form or a plane or something sublime beneath, behind, before, after life that's truer and more important, that the only thing we can do wrong is to treat other people as though they are not of that sacred, holy, sublime thing just as much as we are. I've been reading and listening to a lot of Joseph Campbell lately, and just the universality of myth and the way that they're all truly saying the exact same thing. And there was a time when I wondered if that universality proved that there was a God, or if it just was the result of a need that we have to explain something that's inexplicable and to fill an unfillable void. Why it's so intolerable to not know what's after. Why it's so hard to live with consciousness of our mortality. Why that's frightening. Why we want there to be either something kind or something logical that we can make. Like they may be an evil God, but we know exactly when, where, and how to make the sacrifice that will keep them happy. It's just an illusion of control that we all need in some way. Did that answer your question?
Yes. Are you sure? Maybe, do you want this podcast? You can just have it, I think.
No, it's now become like a point of pride that I don't have one. I'm very invested in never being successful.
I didn't, but then the people who pay my rent on Patreon, I was like, what do you guys want more of? They're like, podcasts. And I was like, damn it. All right, for you, I do this thing.
I'm like, I don't listen to podcasts. I listen to This American Life and I listen to audiobooks. And Maria Bamford was like, then pretend that the book that you want to write is an audiobook and just make it an audiobook. And then it's just, or like a long podcast. Think of a podcast as parts of an audiobook and just freaking write something. And I was like, once I decorate my writing room, I will commence writing.
Then it'll be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I'm reading, I was really stopped up after the book of Holy Fuck was done. I was like, I just couldn't write anything else. I just was like, okay.
I did it.
That's
done.
it.
You're welcome.
Now I'm done. And it's not even done, but whatever. It's as done as I want to make it right now. And
It's out of you.
I was just like, I'm done. That's how I am with projects. It's like, okay. And
what's that like? Finishing something?
No, I don't ever finish it. It just it hits a point about midway where I call it done. And then never come back to it or do anything with it. So people are like, are you publishing that? No, don't talk to me about it ever again.
It's
ephemeral.
done.
It's 90 people got to see it. Go fuck yourself. So,
and it was all the sweeter for that.
But I've been reading. Have you ever read Ray Bradbury's book, Zen and the Art of Writing?
No. I read
It's all
Something
about-
Wicked This Way Comes and Zen in the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, but not Zen in the Art of Writing.
It's I read it along when I first started writing when I was like 18, when I was doing the thing where you read every single writing book because you're looking for the trick. You know, you're looking for
I'm doing that right now.
See? Well, then this is perfect because
And they're all like, right.
right, just keep writing and you're going to have to do a bunch of it. But this one is more about like, what if you fell in love with this? And it's like his experience of being in love with writing and treating it as a privilege and being excited about it. And I've been reading it. Honestly, I read it like a page at a time. And yesterday was about having zest and gusto for writing. And then today, what I was reading was about indignation. Like, when was the last time you took your indignation for something and just like went to the page immediately? And I was thinking how like, I think a lot of times when I feel angry, I feel kind of guilty about feeling angry, or I feel kind of like it's an ugly emotion, you know? So I'll be like,
we're not allowed. Hide that. Smile through it.
That I was like, yeah, that's a really good energy to take to the page. You should read it. You would really like it. And it's, you know, a lot of writing books are more style and form and like, you know, routine and those things. His is like, he's in love with writing and like reading him. It's like, it's a privilege to not just be a writer, but to like, you're a talented writer. And that's a huge privilege. And he's fucking over the moon about it. He's so excited that he gets to be a writer, which is not how I usually feel about it. I'm usually like, what can I do? Today I was supposed to write. I made apple butter and French bread.
Yeah, all I feel about writing is shame and disappointment for not writing.
Yeah.
That's
He's
not gonna
like,
do
he's
it.
like, even if you do 15 minutes, that's 15 minutes today. And lucky you that you got to spend that in this place. Like I think you'd like it.
Yeah.
No, I loved your afterlife answer. I've been thinking a lot about, I read this terrible sci-fi, well, it's sad because it's a good sci-fi book, but there's just too much of the thing. There's too much male ego in it. And also uses the N-word prolifically throughout. And
when was it written?
Okay, so I was reading it and I was like, well, this is kind of like, you know, Lovecraft, where you're like, I'm going to dig through this shit because I like the other stuff. One of the main characters, 15-year-old girl who has sex with a 6-year-old, loves it, can't get enough. Just that sort of thing, you know?
What is this book?
And it's Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson. And I'm going to, next time when I meet him someday, I'm going to be like, what's wrong with you?
Why did you do that?
The book itself is really fascinating, and it's all about like how, you know, when we were living in primitive societies as essentially apes.
Because we all know what that was like, I'm sure.
Well, it's the idea that like before agriculture, before all these things, we had these laws that were more like instinctual. So like monkeys know to crack the nut, you know, like they were more, our societal laws were more instinctual. Then as we became more, you know, like agricultural and less nomadic, we started having oral traditions. And the whole thing is built around like computer coding, as the idea is like, as we started to need to pass things down. Okay, you're making a face and you're not
this
wrong.
is something I think, yeah.
But he does kind of talk about like what you were saying about like, you know, people who never can make the moral jump to the next, like the morality, which is funny because the book itself is like, and what about you though? But I thought it was written in 1950s.
You seem pretty upset about that baby sex. Have you thought about why?
I was like, well, this is probably written in the 60s. 1996. And I did finish it because I had started it in There's also a lot of the thing that men love to do in their books where they're like, so this character is me and he's a fucking sword fighter.
Yeah, he's pretty dope. But then if there's like a woman who's cool, they're like, Mary Sue, yeah, right. And I'm
Mary
like,
Sue, yeah, right.
okay.
And then the women, they write her, the woman, the main female character, she was like 15 and a skateboarder and loved older men. And you're like,
don't you wish that existed?
Okay. Man, it was
wrote
rough.
your dreams. Yeah.
Anyway, I was only bringing it up because, I just burned myself on my light. Alex has all these like, they're like film lights. And they're so hot.
You get so hot on camera. You're just sweating on, not you, but one. Yeah, it's hard. I did a show and I lit myself too much. And by the end of it, I was like, this is horrible. I'm literally in hell. And I did it to myself.
I turned off one because I was like, I am dripping sweat. I'm so hot. And it's like shining in my eyes. And then I just tried to move that one and I burned myself. So.
Wow.
Great.
What did we learn? Nothing. I don't know.
Nothing.
Yeah, there's The World Until Yesterday by Jeffrey Diamond. Kind of talks about how quickly we've changed, that like a nanosecond ago in the history of Earth, you never met like more than 75 people in your whole life. Like everyone you knew you were blood related to, and if you weren't, you killed them on sight. And like what a feat it has been that we've developed the ability to live with strangers and like govern interactions. Jonathan Haidt, he's my favorite positive psychologist. He's doing a lot of moral foundations theory. But his research, he started looking at disgust and how much of morality was really based in like a gut level concern about cleanliness that would be like an ape instinct. And he did this questionnaire where he asked about things like, you know, if your dog gets run over and killed, you know, what's wrong with eating it? And it's like, can you give me an intellectual reason why you shouldn't eat your dog? You can't. We all agree that that's terrible, wrong, gross, would never do it. But it's completely an irrational gut thing. Like, why shouldn't, you know, if two people are infertile and they're siblings, why shouldn't they have sex? And the reason's always like, because genes. And they're like, nope, no genes. And they're like, nope, they're adults and they're consenting. What's the problem? And it's like, it's yuck, because it's yuck. We think that there's just so much like moral theory in all of this, but a lot of it's very instinctual. So I guess he's saying that we should get over that and just let all the kids have sex if they want to. Which was a weird part of Brave New World, which was my favorite book for a long time. But they were like, oh, kids, they're in that age where they just all have sex in the bushes. And we're so advanced that we don't yell at them for that. And I'm like, ooh. I mean, yeah, why? Yeah, so much of it is around sex.
Yeah.
Why do we? I mean, presumably, like way, way back, there weren't STDs and things that would, I guess it was a control thing. Like so much of sexual rules that we get from Leviticus are about what you need to do when you're a small tribe living in the desert. Like you cannot be spilling your seed in the desert. You got to be putting that in somebody. We got to keep all the women married and pregnant because there are not a lot of us. And we also have to like keep our bloodline very distinct.
Yeah. That's kind of, that book was talking about like basically how a lot of these, they're like, you know, they're called me in the book. And I think that's actually from the Sumerians. It had a lot of research in it. You would have liked it. It was a whole lot of about the how Sumerian can't be spoken anymore because actually the way the Sumerians' brains worked is very different than ours. But I love the face you're making right now. I love it so much. Oh my God. It was a sci-fi book. So it was, you know, silly. But one of the things was like basically how like so many of the rules that we're still following just basically came down to hygiene. Like you said, that came down to like, that in even the other day when I was at the doctor, one of my doctors is a Chinese American, and he was like, "This is why we bow in China," because we were talking about Corona, and he was like, "This is why we bow because the Chinese people have known for 6,000 years that hugging each other, hello and goodbye, is how you pass germs." And he was like, "I wish everybody would go back to bowing." I was like,
"Right,
for sure, absolutely."
It's like funny, yeah. You've heard, I guess, have you read Guns, Germs, and Steel? Another Jared Diamond. I think I said Jeffrey Diamond before. Jared Diamond. I mean, really, the reason that like the West won is because we all like slept with animals in our house, and we drank so much alcohol. Like that's like everyone who lived in Europe was able to live because they didn't drink the filthy water. They just drank beer all the time. And they lived in such close proximity to animals that we had all this immunity. So by the time we showed up anywhere else, we just like wrecked everybody.
Oh, God.
But it was just because we were filthy. And because our continent was on a latitudinal axis. Was wider than it was tall.
That's why we're doing so well, you and I, is because we have not showered in days.
We're building up our immunity.
So many days of dry shampoo right here.
I take a shower once a month, whether I need it or not.
Yeah, yeah. I'm wearing the same pants. I'm wearing the same shirt. I haven't shaved my armpits.
Whatever.
I don't know.
Somebody was like, take note of the kind of gendered things that you don't do when you are not being seen.
Yeah.
And I still 100% wear my binder every day. So that's...
Do you really?
Yeah, that's real me. That's not about being seen. That's about boobies. Blah! What are they doing on me? It's like two little parasites. Get away. Get off. Weird.
Mm-hmm. How interesting.
But, yeah, because a lot of people are like, I don't wear a bra anymore. And I'm like, I wear a sausage casing on my whole torso. It also, I guess, makes me feel skinny, probably. At this point, it's almost as much of like the girdle effect, but we don't need to. You're going to edit that out. Thank you.
That will take that out. Yeah, that's an interesting. I've really felt like clearly, you know how people are like, I do it for me. Okay, it's for me. The makeup, the hair, it's for me. And I'm like, it was never for me because I haven't done. Today, I put on mascara for you. I put on mascara to see you, but that was the first time I've put on. I've been doing it for the live streams occasionally, but I've been like, oh yes. Clearly out of the male gaze, like I don't do anything. I'm done. Yeah. I don't care.
It is an interesting thing to note.
You were the first person you and Carly were the first person who really made me aware of that on that tour where you were just like you kept pointing it out to me and I kept being like, what? What are you talking about? And then I finally was like, holy shit, you're right. Like I have been so conditioned. I don't even see all these things of like, the different energy that men make you bring to a room and like all these things and being around two lesbians for 10 days, 10 glorious, perfect days really was. And it's weird because I grew up with all these lesbians and stuff and I don't know how, like, I don't know.
Peers, right?
Well, no, I mean, they were adults and I was a child and, you know, but still like not just family. We had, you know, my aunts were part of a big, happy, ranchy commune situation after they moved out of our house. So we were around a lot. And so it's funny because I think maybe it was generational because I was kind of like, oh, this is what these old lesbians do. Not, you know, not the fun hip lesbians. But I wonder
if it's just like, well, yeah, when I'm a child, I don't do that. But it's adult time and adult time means
adult time
paying attention to my titties.
Yeah.
When I was a babe, now that I'm not, I put down my childish things and wear eyeliner. Different stage of life.
Haven't done any of it. Yeah.
I had such a meltdown when that dude showed up and I was like, why is this
You were
happening?
so right.
I was like, what a crazy butch weirdo you are. Let them do what they want. But you didn't want to. But I didn't feel like I should be putting my will over what you wanted.
That was such a fascinating little like snapshot into my personality that I had never seen sort of from the outside because it was you, me, and Carly. We're on tour. What town was that? Austin? Dallas? No, not Dallas.
It was somewhere where we had an outdoor show.
We did have an outdoor show.
It wasn't Lafayette.
No, it wasn't Lafayette. It was definitely Texas somewhere.
I think it was Austin.
I think it was Austin.
Yeah.
And then we went dancing at this wonderful disco place afterward. And it was the three of us. And it was all just like great, having fun, dancing. And then this guy came over with like a bandana, but like he had done it so wide. It was like, 4 inches of bandana up top, long, greasy hair, skinny. I think he was wearing like a white tank top and jeans. And he kept kind of like following me around and like dancing with me. And you had this like lovely, it's funny you see it as like this like butch meltdown because to me later I was really like, I wanted to be with you two. We were on tour. We were doing like a girly thing. And I felt like I don't even really know how to like, I still have enough awareness of it, but I'm also enough that I'm like, I guess, no, I know exactly what it is. I just think it's gross. I'm just like a boy crazy fuckhead. And he was like, come here. And I was like, I gotta go. And you girls were like, what the fuck?
Well, and then like, if that's what you want to do, then go for it. And it's like, I'm not competing for that space with you.
But
And
I didn't even want to. I wasn't attracted to him. It was just more like habit, where like if men showed me attention, I always sort of gave it back. And it wasn't politeness. It was just almost like, I don't know. I have this itch and these guys itch it. I don't know. And then as soon as you came over and you were like, I don't know, what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh God, I don't.
No, I didn't. Didn't I just sulk quietly? And you were like, what's wrong? And I was like, nothing. And I was looking at like a picture of my dad with his child bride. And you were like, you're ruining the night. Then I do something like 3 steps removed. Weird.
No, but then Carly, it must have been Carly then, because she goes, why are you talking to that drywaller?
Carly said it. I was just like, oh, that's fine. Go have fun. I'll go die.
No, and
I don't think I went to that. I feel like the only time I danced was at the one club with the guy who owned the club. I feel like we were out at an outdoor venue and I was like, okay, then I guess you guys go do that. And I went home without you. No?
There was
you met him at
in
the
Atlanta. You didn't come with us. Because remember, because in Atlanta, this is the sweetest thing. When we came back from clubbing, me and Carly went clubbing. And when we came back, you had set water bottles and granola bars on our nightstands and like had set out our toothbrushes. And I was like, I love it. I love this.
Well, that's what I do when I'm like sulking and being antisocial. I'm like, well, you better make use of this time. So when they come home, they're not like, why did you not come out, you boring? They're like, oh, you did a sweet thing. It was a trick. It's all a trick.
That's all a trick. Well, that was like a very instructive night for me because I was like, wow, I don't know what this is, like why I do this, like whatever this is, I don't want to do it and I don't like it. And it was like the first kind of like understanding of that part of myself that it was like, what about the male gaze can drag me away from something I actually want to be doing and want to be a part of, you know, to go like get that attention or whatever it was for, you know? And because that guy was not fuckable, for sure.
I was like, I don't know what is attractive about men, so I never know how to tell. Like, no, that's a bad one. And people are like, no, that's what I like. And I'm like, ugh, okay. All right. He doesn't look like Aquaman, so I don't really know why we're looking at him. I don't get it. I think a lot about how all of our interactions are still like in this 50s mode where it's like men are just trying and women are supposed to say no. And when there's no reason to say no anymore, I feel like it's gotten very hard. I feel like teenage girls were like, I don't know, I went home, but I didn't want to be there. I was with him. And because I guess it was that Babe story about Tom Haverford, whatever the guy's actual real life name is, where the girl talked about like a date that she went on that was bad. And she kind of was like, no, I don't want to have sex. And then they were having sex and she was like really upset about it. And Jamal was like, that's insane. Like, say no. And I was like, it's just hard to say no. And it's like, it's kind of scary when you say no a few times, but then it still happens. She was like, no. And she was like, this has got to be a generational difference. I just have never put myself in anything like a situation. I don't talk to men for very long. I don't take drinks from them. I don't go to a second location. I don't because I just think it's hard there doesn't seem to be a good reason to say no. And I think the only reason that there is like, I'm not attracted to you. I find your body repulsive and I don't want you. And your sex dance is bad and I am not won over by your mating call. And I think that feels too mean. And I think women are not allowed to be mean. So I think it's just a real tough spot.
Yeah. And also if add into that, like I was freshly single. And I think for me, the idea that like freedom automatically meant promiscuity. Mm-hmm. You know, that like,
well, I haven't been allowed to do this, so now I'm gonna.
Yes. And it was like, you know, I also think that I was taught to overvalue the opinions of men. So when men are like, I want to fuck you, for a long time that meant something to me. Like, oh my God, thank you so much. Like,
are you gonna throw that gold away? You won. Get your trophy.
Get your trophy. Yeah. And I think also like I always kind of like to flirt and stuff, but then it was like you said, like I like to flirt and I like to dance and stuff, but then when men would be like, now this means sex, I would be like, oh, well, you can't just say no, it doesn't. I just wanted a sweaty body
scary.
near mine for a few minutes, and now I want
Yeah.
it to go away forever.
That was what I wanted. It wasn't in service of a thing. That was the thing. And we had it and we're all set. And they're like, but now my literal balls are exploding and you're a monster. And you're like, ugh, ugh. It's scary. It's scary to create a sense of obligation because that frightens me and feels super dangerous.
Yeah, it is super dangerous. I can't even tell you how many. I give such an efficient hand job because of that. Like such a clinical and efficient, like your mind completely elsewhere, just getting it over with a hand job. And I bet so many straight girls do because of that. You know, like it's just you get sort of good at being like, well, it's funny. I had after that Aziz Ansari story came out, I had that same fight with so many men who were like, she shouldn't even have written that. And I'm like, she wasn't accusing him. She was trying to sort of like
just prove
a bigger
exactly
point
what happened.
and be like, this is something that is endemic of how bad men are at sex and how little they care about actually you being into it and enjoying it and excited about it.
The one objective is to push and push and push until you get. There's no break.
Yeah.
Internal in their process of like, is this something that we both want? Because I've joked and been like, can't you tell the difference between when a woman is aroused and having fun and when she's not? And then I was like, oh, you can't because you've probably never actually aroused a woman.
No.
And you're like, don't you hate how vaginas are so dry? And it's like...
There was a comic in New York. Oh my God, I wish I could remember his name. Jason. He ran a show in Brooklyn. Oh, I wish I could call him out right now. I hadn't done a show in a little bit in New York, and I got there and I went and hopped on this show. And he did like right before me, because he put me up first because I was the only woman, of course. So
Get
he
that
was
out of the way so
hosting.
you can start the show.
So he did 10 minutes, but 10 minutes on how his wife's pussy was so dry and that's why he wanted to cheat on her with a 22-year-old was because they had wet pussies and how he just really wanted to cheat on his wife. And it was just like this, one of those
like,
times.
do they think they just have a constant level of wet?
We're not snails.
This is a bad one. I want a good one.
Yeah. And he just
I want one of the wet
and
models.
And it was like such a tell where you're like, I was like looking at the women in the crowd and we were making eye contact and going like.
And it's so incredible that I'm always convinced that I'm going to say something and people are going to be like, are you serious? That's so dumb. Don't you know this thing everyone knows? That he didn't even run that by anybody.
Yeah.
He was like, I would like to say a thing about how I desire a younger woman and hate my wife's body. And I'm not even going to fact check that. I'm not even going to, that doesn't call for an extra level of scrutiny.
Because most of the joke was him going to the guys in the crowd, you're with a woman, so you can't agree with me, but you know I'm right. You know I'm right. And it was so just like, Jesus Christ. Ugh. I wish I remembered his last name.
Ben Shapiro, when Wet Ass Pussy came out, he was like, I talked to my gynecologist wife, and she said that if you need a mop and bucket, you have a condition. And everybody was like, how are you just going to go out in public and say you don't get your wife wet?
Yeah, it's just how.
Remarkable.
Oh, it's beautiful. Well, this is
Beth Selling in her new special, has the joke about like with women, you just got to like get sperm out of them before they kill somebody. Like it's just a collective societal duty that we have to do that so we don't drive vans into people.
There's a rule in my house that you can't talk to me about Beth Stilling because I love her so much. Okay, let's just preface this with, I love Beth personally. I think she is so fucking funny. And she is literally the only person in the industry that I hold myself as against and feel shitty about all the time. Like every time her name comes up, I had to I'm sorry, Beth. I had to unfollow her on Instagram because everything she'd post, I'd just be like, I'm going to go jump off a bridge. I hate myself. I've always been trash at comedy. I'm a trash person.
I feel personally targeted by your specific amazingness.
And I love her. I think she's amazing. And that's part of what makes me so mad is I'm never like that with women. I'm never jealous. I'm never like petty. And for her, for some reason, I'm so petty. I think
she's
it's because
so great. I don't know.
She's so great. And she has mold. This, I was like a skank, okay, growing up, obviously. I don't need to tell you that, okay? I was like a skanky teenager. And I always really envied the girls next door who the boys didn't try to fuck and they were very respectful of and they liked them as people. So I
Like
think
talk to them about stuff they wanted to talk about.
And so I'll see like male comedians who've been absolute slimeball garbage to me, treating Beth like a human being. And of course, instead of being like, those men suck, I'm like, it's because I'm trash. And it's very,
If I were like Beth, things would be better.
if I was just Beth Stelling. And
She is such a, I feel, I don't know, if, like, we obviously need more genders, but I feel like she's a very special, distinct one. I feel like she's such a woman, but none of the dumb woman parts. I just feel like, oh God.
like me? Is
Women
that
are
what
great.
you're saying, Lauren?
No, I just feel like,
She's not chasing after drywallers.
she's like I was going to say if a man were a woman, but that's not what I want to say. I just feel like she's like, yeah, fuck, whatever. I'm good. Look at me. I wear overalls and I'm awesome.
Like,
I'm tall. I don't give a shit about you. I'm going to talk about eating too many bagels and I don't even feel embarrassed. I literally have none of, I am immune to all weaknesses and failings.
I think that's maybe it, is like she has been able to be feminine. Like she is able to present a very masculinely a lot of times in a way that like men respect, while still also being seen by them as a woman. Mm-hmm. Whereas
when I say masculine in that context, I mean utterly without insecurity.
Oh yeah.
I think that's what
totally
masculine means. Is that she just apologizes for nothing and is not embarrassed of things that she shouldn't be embarrassed of. And it's mind-boggling.
Yeah, I hate it. And whatever, it's fine. It's so fine that like even a couple weeks ago we were joking about something and Alex made like a little joke about about like Beth Stelling, and I was like, don't you start. Don't you start. And then he was like, oh, I followed her on Instagram. I'm like, oh, I followed her on Instagram. Fuck you. Fuck you.
I literally hate you.
It's literally like this weird comedy jealousy where I'm just like, no, you don't you watch her HBO special. I'll fucking, don't you do it.
It's not fair to watch somebody walking around being the person you know you want to be but can't be. It's like, oh, you're just going to be that on Earth? Right in my face? Literally, how dare you?
That's very cool about
right
selling.
Here. Don't you live my dream? Yeah. Very rude. Very rude.
I want to be respected and liked by all the boys and they don't try to finger me in the green room. Amazing. I mean, maybe they do. She probably has plenty of stories, but when I've been around, I've been like, oh, cool. This guy is like treats, or, you know, sometimes she'll tweet something about a guy who's been just totally slimy to me. And she'll be like, oh, he's always been so cool to me. And I'm like, and instead of being like, this person treats, you know, tiny femme women different. I'm like, it's because I'm a whore, right?
It's me. It's my fault.
I deserve it.
Did you see that guy, Joe something, KW and a lot of consonants, when he did that, like, a video every day for 30 days? And one of them was her doing some dude's shitty podcast. And it was so great. She just got, like, shitty tap water and the guy had never heard anything she did. It was just her getting mistreated. But again, it doesn't stick to her. It's just and so clearly this guy's insane, and why was she even?
You know what? I don't have any respect for it because she had a dad, and I feel like that's cheating. Okay,
but
whatever.
Do you know
Big
about
deal.
her dad? Her dad is hilarious. You know, he
she has nice parents. If you have nice parents,
no, he left and went to Miami to pursue show business, and he's a guy who like is different mascots in front of stores.
Oh God, that's amazing.
He's a
of course,
he's
amazing.
Peach.
Stop talking to me about Beth Stelling on my own podcast.
I'm sorry.
I hate you. I have two more questions for you.
Kai.
One is a question I came up with specifically for you. And then the other one is seasonal.
Okay.
Now, this is the first one. So tell me about, and I have no idea why. I just, all of a sudden today, I was thinking about things I was curious about you. And this popped into my head. Tell me about your grandmas.
I've been doing so much genealogy when I'm supposed to be working. I only knew one of my grandmothers, my dad's mom, and she died in my second grade. She did not have children before second grade. Her mother, actually, my great grandmother, was around longer. I don't know. Yeah, Lula was her name. My grandmother. She died of lung cancer. She bought me a ceramic face doll, and I cried because I hated it and was scared of it, and I got in trouble. I don't really have any memories of her beyond that, and my grandfather being a turd. My great grandmother, Margaret, she was cool. She died when she was 96. She was a very good duck pin bowler. I think she bowled a perfect game one time. Played pinochle at her house in Baltimore, and she died of the flu because my grandfather didn't take her to the doctor.
Oh, gosh.
But my mom's mother, I kind of feel like either I'm the reincarnation of, or that everything in my life would have been fixed if she had been around. And I've thought about, have you read Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit?
No. Mm-mm.
It's Jeanette Winterson. It was like her first book that she wrote when she was like in her 20s about her life until she was 20, and it won like all these awards, and good for her. But she wrote that, and then she wrote a memoir about it and talked about the process of writing it and a character that she included who was not in her life in reality. But she included this person who said kind things to her because she couldn't inflict her story on the public without that person being there, that it was too awful for them not to be there. And I thought, like, what if I wrote the story of my childhood and I said, I can't imagine what would have happened if I had my grandmother. And then I was like, psych, I never had her. She died. Everything was terrible.
Wow.
But yeah, she died when I was like 2 months old. She held me one time. She died of colon cancer. Her husband died when my mom was 12 and my youngest uncle was a baby. He had a heart attack in the driveway at like 42. Her name was Janice. My grandfather would make fun of her for being overweight. She lamented all the time she spent working in a dress shop and not dating and having fun. She was my grandfather's second wife. She was very depressed. She was apparently brilliant. My mom always talks about her, that my mom couldn't understand Shakespeare unless my grandmother read it out loud to her. And that she was a gifted painter. She made my mom's clothes. She made a dress, and Mikhail Baryshnikov saw her. They were riding in a car together. And he said, "You've got to tell me where you got that dress." And she said, "My mother made it." And then he asked her out, and she was like, "You're married." She would spend a lot of time watching the news and just saying, "Those sons of bitches. Sons of bitches." Her favorite movie was Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The
Really?
original. Mm-hmm.
How funny.
She was brilliant, but depressed. And so when my grandfather died, she ended up cleaning houses. Apparently the house was like a catastrophe, and my mother was mortified and would always have neighbors or dates drop her off down the street. She never had anyone come over. She would go into a neighbor's house, and if it was clean, she would just wish that she lived there. But her room was apparently always perfect, that she had furniture, and her mother put up wallpaper, and it was beautiful. And my mom talks so much about missing her. There was a conflict. Something happened, and my mom moved out and moved in with my grandfather's sister. And apparently they all kind of laughed at Janice for being whatever she was. And my mother has a lot of regrets about that betrayal. But she sees now the painful generosity of her mother letting her go live with people that she knew didn't respect her because that was what she needed to do. That would make her happier. My dad flew her to like Germany or somewhere for some kind of weird treatment for her colon cancer. And when she came home, he had like built a deck and lit the outside of the house. And all she said was, "Who's going to pay that electric bill?" And they were like, "Cool, thanks." Congratulations. My mom would get really upset about my uncles having like cars in the yard and things. And my grandmother probably would always just say, "Oh, leave them alone. They're not getting into trouble. Let them do what they like." And I just imagine that if she had been around when I was a kid, she would have just said, like, "Leave her alone. She likes rocks. Let her wear boy shirts. What do you care?" I feel a therapist asked what my earliest memory was I was crying and nobody coming. But no, we were trying to talk about why I felt my mother didn't like me. And I, again, like blamed myself for lots of ways that I was and things that I did. But we got back to, it's not even a memory of mine. It's a memory of my mother saying that I was a baby and I was babbling on like a plastic phone. And she said there was something about it that she said, oh God, she's my mother.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, and my therapist was like, so she had animosity towards you as an infant. You understand that that's not your fault. And that was a big thing for me. But I think about how hard that was for my mother to be raised by somebody who's just kind of her worst nightmare. Like my mother, cut her foot off before you embarrass her. And she talks so much about my grandmother going out in baseball socks to a nice restaurant and not looking up from the menu. She was embarrassed by her bad teeth and wouldn't smile and always covered her mouth. To have been raised by somebody so inaccessible and incomprehensible to her, so embarrassing, and to have a baby, to have your mother die right after that, to be essentially orphaned, and then discover that like your baby is that inaccessible, incomprehensible mother reborn for you to have to go through it all over again with. I cannot imagine what that would have been like for her. And right around that time, my dad was like getting arrested and getting all my uncles arrested for driving trucks for his illegal counterfeit handbag ring. And my mom was going to FIT and they were like studying the case in her class because it was a law that had just passed that year or the year before that was enforcing trademarks more. So she was so mortified that she didn't go back to school. So in that window of time, she had a child that was her inaccessible mother reborn. She was orphaned. She lost the ability to go to the school that she was doing very well in. And she was so meant to be like a fashion buyer. And she was stuck. The only like support she had in the world was the husband who had just gotten all of her brother's felony convictions.
Jesus.
And then he like lost the house. And she said, you know, if any one of those things hadn't happened, she would have left. She would have gone back home. She would have been with her mother. She would have gone to school. Like,
yeah.
I think when I turned 24, I was like, this is how old you were when you had me. You were not an adult.
Mm-mm.
I just always felt like I was the child and you were the mom and you were supposed to be better because you're a grown up and I didn't ask to be born. And it was like, if I got married at 22 and all that stuff happened to me at 24, I would have killed my baby. So she did pretty okay because I'm still here.
That's a pretty wild realization. This house I'm living in, you know, I grew up here and my parents had been renting it, but then their renter moved out and they knew we were looking for a place. And because of COVID, they didn't want to have to come and do repairs with someone. So they were like, you guys, I had been wanting to rent it from them for 20 years because I love this house so much. It's so wonderful. But they were always just like, we would never rent to our kids. It would be a mess. But because of COVID, haha, guess what? I'm in.
Everything's a mess. So by comparison.
But I think about, you know, there's 5 of us and my stepdad had 3, my mom had 2, and they got together and we moved in here. And I think some of my siblings still have a lot of resentment about them being neglectful parents. Like our house was pretty dirty. And I mean, it was the kind of house like nobody was like, we didn't have dinner a lot of times, but like if you needed a ride to soccer practice, someone would get you there. Like, you know, it was 80s neglect, I always say, regular 80s neglect. But my parents, I was thinking about it the other day and I was like, when they moved into this house, they were 30 years old. They were both 30 years old and they had 5 kids when they moved into this house. And now to me, 30 seems very young. Like, I'm like, oh, you're a kid. My God. You know, like
I'm like 35 and I'm like, I can't be doing homework. I need to be getting my head straight to write my book. I'm just going to play some video games.
Yeah.
Like
my parents worked, both of them full time. They raised 5 kids. You know, they had no money. They both worked. Like my mom was an RT. My stepdad worked for the city, you know, so it's not like they had money. So yeah, it's wild. Like you do, as your kids get older, start to forgive a lot. And like now that I have 3 teenagers too, like all the time I'm talking to my mom and I'm like, how the fuck did you do 5 of us? How the fuck? Because like by a lot of times by the time they go see their dad, I'm like ragged because everybody's just bitching at me. Everybody's mad at me all the time. They say the meanest little things to you and break your heart over and over. And it's just, but my parents did 5 and they did it pretty chill. Like they were pretty decent, chill parents. And yeah.
I mean, that's like, part of the world until yesterday is how, it takes a village and all that nonsense. Like, no one was solely responsible for their children. Like, kids were watched communally while you did things you had to do, and everyone stepped in and disciplined your kid or knocked them off the thing they weren't supposed to be on. Like, it's not possible to do this. And I mean, if you like every, Jane Austen time movie or something that you watch, it was like there was a nanny, there was a nursery. You didn't talk to your kids until like you visited your children. And
there was a whole crew of people who it's a weird COVID has like compounded that, where like now it really is just us, and
you can't just go somewhere.
And